Welcome to the FBC Durant podcast. I'm Garrett.
I'm Cory.
I'm Sarah.
And today we have Dustin Searles.
Hello.
Our pastor of Mobilization and college. And so to kind of wrap up our 4 episodes on the 4 pillars of the spiritual pathway for a church member here at FBC Durant, we're focusing on mobilization and what that looks like within our ministries. But first of all, first takes. So, Dustin, the premise is I ask you a question, and you just try to answer from what comes to mind first. All right?
I wasn't nervous until now.
Okay.
Now I'm real nervous.
It's been pretty personalized, so here we go. We'll start with the hardest one first.
Favorite kid?
Favorite kid? It is, I can't say.
They don't listen.
I don't have favorites.
Depends on the day.
I can tell you my favorite nephew, but I won't.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right. The best modern hymn.
The best modern hymn?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite modern hymn is Be Thou My Vision from Ascend the Hill.
Okay.
Good answer.
Or do you mean, do you mean like modernly written hymn?
It was a loaded question.
Okay.
Yeah. It's whatever
From the
you want,
get-go.
man.
I like that one.
I had this dream to create we have our hymnal, but a modern hymnal would be really cool.
Yeah, it would be cool.
That'd be a lot of arguing.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I mean, it's the arrangement's modern. It's a super old hymn.
Yeah.
But
They
it's-
added their own little pizzazz to it.
Yeah, they added a bridge
It's
like
nice.
everybody does. But I love that one. As far as like new lyrics, modern hymns, I'm really liking Only a Holy God right now. I would call that a modern hymn.
It's very hymn-like. Yeah, that's a long conversation.
Yeah,
That could be a bonus episode there. All right. Isolated Alaskan fishing trip or elk hunting in Montana.
Oh,
I don't even know if those two excite you,
both
but they
sound
sound cool.
to me.
Yeah,
you.
I gotta pick.
I was like, ugh.
I would pick elk hunting.
You would hunt over fishing?
I would. I mean, I would love to do the isolated fishing trip
Yeah.
for
Sorry,
sure.
we have no surprise that you're actually going on one of these.
Yeah, but yeah, I've not been elk hunting, so that would be
Okay.
that'd be my pick.
That's
Yeah.
fair. That's cool. I asked Jim this one. The craziest youth group experience you had as a youth pastor in 3 words.
Oh gosh. I don't even know if I can do it in 3 words.
You can use more than 3 words.
I'll give you a sentence.
I
at
can
least.
use 3. Okay.
You can use more than 3 words.
I'm trying to even think back through things that happened. Let's see.
Man, he's got a lot.
No. I'm trying to think of how to word this one. I would just say Dice of Doom.
Dice of
Dice
Doom.
of
Dice of
Doom.
Dude,
Three.
that's a good one. That's
Yeah.
a really good
Dice
one.
of Doom was just that was a bad idea.
So many
It was a bad idea. I shut
but
it down.
everyone has it.
Well, after the year that
Everyone
we
does
did
it.
KBA together,
See,
I shut
I just
that
thought
down.
you were going to say the year we did KBA together was the dumbest thing you ever did as a
It
youth
probably
pastor.
was. Yeah, that was.
KBA?
Yeah, 'cause-
KBA.
No, KBA.
No, we love KBA. But
Yeah,
that's right.
But we were the band that week, and we thought, well, 2 birds, 1 stone. We'll just bring our youth pastor. So we had to be like in 2 places at once all the time.
Wow.
Luckily, we had like a really great support staff. I'm pretty sure like Northcott just ran things that week.
Yeah, we
inside
couldn't
the
have done it
cabin.
without
That's
Joel
awesome.
Northcutt.
Yeah,
It was
like, I
still
think-
a terrible idea.
Yeah,
That's
but
hilarious.
yeah, it was a bad idea. And there was a tornado on the first day that
There
just
was?
nailed Tallahena. So
Yeah.
you also just had kids screaming. You're throwing mattresses on them. You're like, it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Just write it out. You're
So-
Oklahomans.
That was the dumbest thing we ever did.
That's funny. That would be challenging. My 3 words were throw up everywhere.
Oh, no. I was there for that. I think we were there. Me and Cole were there for at least one of those times.
Deserves a t-shirt for sure.
So fun.
I
Fun,
survived.
fun.
Yeah. Next one. The John Mark McMillan starter kit. Someone's first 3 songs or album to start with.
Okay. I would say Death in His Grave.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm trying to remember the name of. I don't think I can come up with a name. So we'll say Death in His Grave.
Okay. This is where Cole needs his side mic.
I was about to say,
'Cause I feel
Cole
his
is
wheels
over
turning over.
there.
You got it? Okay. I'm just going to say some of my favorites. Death in His Grave, Skeleton Bones.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
is a real good one that we overplayed.
What's the other one that we overplayed?
Bring it back.
Do you have to say How He Loves? Because it's like the
No.
most popular. No,
It's the most controversial
It's the most-
worship song.
he wrote it, right?
he did write it.
Yeah, he wrote that.
Okay, let's keep that one out. So, Death in His Grave, Skeleton Bones, and I'm gonna say Future Past.
Oh,
That's a great
No
song,
Love You Swore,
actually.
No Dress Us Up. Or
I
whatever.
do like those a whole lot. I should have said dress us up because Corey hates it.
Oh my gosh, I don't like most of John Mark McMillan songs that we played over and over again.
We played that one a lot.
I guess now's enough time's passed. I could probably go back and enjoy them, but I
Yeah.
definitely stopped
Probably so.
listening back
Yeah.
then. I was like, oh my gosh.
So if you don't know him, there he just gave you the starter
there you
kit.
go.
So you're
There's
set.
a starter kit.
Get
yeah.
to know John.
They're a little bit older.
That's all right.
Can I tell you my favorite album?
Yeah.
I think my favorite album is probably Economy. Actually,
Okay.
Economy. Was that an older one?
it was right after like The Medicine has Death in His Grave and Skeleton Bones, and Economy is the one right after that.
Cole
I
says
don't know if it's his
2012.
best, but it's probably my favorite to listen to. What'd you say?
Okay.
2012.
Oh, 2012. Okay, yeah, it's
2012.
old.
That's the year I graduated high school.
Shout
You're
out.
so young.
12.
Last one, but a big one.
Go for it. I want you to ask.
Your favorite meal that Hannah Searles makes?
Favorite meal that Hannah Searles makes? I'm gonna say her family calls it goulash.
Okay.
So I'll say her
Okay.
goulash. Now it's not what everyone else calls goulash. Right? You think of goulash, it's like noodles,
Yeah, I think of meat
ground
noodles.
meat, red
Yeah.
sauce,
Okay.
right? Theirs is more like stroganoff.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It's like stew meat. Usually they use like egg noodles, but it's just it's like the best stroganoff you ever had. So-
Shout out Hannah Searles because my favorite meal that she makes is gluten-free chicken Alfredo.
Oh.
That
She
is-
makes it for me every time I've had a meal train.
She makes a good one.
And it is the best thing ever. So shout out to her because
Yeah, her
I am
chicken Alfredo's
gluten free and I
awesome.
do not often get to enjoy really good
Yeah.
chicken Alfredo. But
Yeah.
There's a list
10
of
out of 10.
favorites.
That's good stuff.
Oh yeah. Everything she makes. How about that?
Yeah.
There you go.
Excellent cook.
Good answer. Good answer. Well, Dustin, we're glad to have you. If you would, we've had you on several times, but we haven't get.
It's never been about you.
Yeah,
That's right. I've always been here because Sarah couldn't be here.
welcome here.
So both in the same place. That's magical.
Yeah.
Finally together today.
Made it happen.
So if you would, we do want to hear kind of your story, just your life and what's led you to where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up in Hugo, Oklahoma. Yeah, I'm a Hugo Buffalo for sure. I loved Hugo. I feel like Hugo
I
gets a
too.
bad rap, and I loved
love
Hugo.
Period.
growing up.
Why? It's got
I
a
never
circus
planned on leaving.
graveyard. It's got a goat man.
The circus
It's a
graveyard
great
is sending
place.
me.
So yeah, I grew up in Hugo. Grew up in the church. Like a lot of people, there was a time when I was really young when I prayed a prayer that, as I got older, realized I just did not understand the gospel. So at 14 years old is when I look back to the moment where I believe the Lord saved me. I remember being at Falls Creek and wrestling with whether or not I knew the Lord, and finally came to grips with the reality that I didn't know Him. Went back to our cabin. I did not respond to an invitation. I didn't want to talk to a stranger. So I went back to my cabin and found my youth pastor. I remember being really worried that like the rapture would happen before I got there.
Dude,
And
we all did that.
I would just be in this like anarchy, Falls Creek.
kinda
Everybody's
wanna know what the
lost.
sermon that night
all
was.
the youth pastors are gone. Anyway,
What was the sermon that night? Was it like,
I don't know, man.
better not
I had
miss this opportunity, man?
I had probably watched Left
Dumb.
Behind and was real freaked out about it. So,
Yeah, I read those books and that really put me in a bad way.
yeah. Oh, I definitely did
About
not
the-
read any of the books.
14-year-old Dustin just
But I watched the
sprinting
movie.
across Falls Creek.
I'm imagining him like barreling through people, like knocking people over to get
I
back
definitely
to the
was.
cabin.
I was definitely like hurdling those benches that they used to have in the old
Oh
tab.
my gosh.
So anyway, yeah, I get back to the cabin, talk to my youth pastor. His name's Byron Smith. is still at Hugo. FBC
Still at
doing
Hugo,
youth
man.
ministry.
He's a lifer.
Yeah, so got to hang out with him last week a little bit. But went back there, found him, and I just basically told him that I didn't think I knew the Lord. And so we talked through the gospel, and I remember specifically him asking me if I confessed Jesus as Lord or if I knew what that meant. I did not. And he began to explain what lordship was. And I remember him using the terminology, that you're making Jesus your boss. I remember specifically him saying boss, and that resonated with me. And I knew that I did not. I knew I had not done that, right? That I didn't understand that aspect of surrender. And so the Lord saved me. And I was involved in church, youth group stuff, all through the rest of junior high and high school. Didn't grow in my faith very much. Just wasn't in the Word. I knew I should be, but I wasn't. Still did all the youth things, mission trips and camp and all that kind of stuff. And then whenever I was in college, is really when I started to grow, started to see people that were my age who were really hungry for the Word. And that made a big impact in my life for sure. I was involved in the BCM at Murray State. We were a little behind in the times. We still called it BSU
There you go.
when I was at Murray. And they were supposed to call it BCM, but they called it BSU.
They
still.
were like, we're not
They
doing that.
weren't doing
That's
it yet.
strong.
Yeah. So, so I went
that.
They were
to Murray
holdouts.
State BSU, and had a great experience there. And then transferred to Southeastern, and just continued to grow in my faith during that time. Kind of an interesting thing, I think, when I think through what the Lord has done in my life is the reality that when I was younger, I wanted nothing to do with ministry specifically. I feel like there's a lot of people in ministry that have a similar story. But when I was in high school, I made decent grades, but I wasn't getting any scholarships for sure. I'm bad at tests. ACT was not a strong point for me. And my mother, I think, knew that, and so made me apply for every scholarship, every local thing that I
Might
could.
get one. Might snag one.
That's right. You may get one
Thanks,
if you apply for all of them. And there was one specific scholarship that was a local scholarship that for some reason, I think it changed year to year, but that year to get it, you had to either be going into education or ministry, and I didn't want to do either. I didn't think I was called to ministry at that, as an 18-year-old. And I didn't want to do education because I thought they didn't make enough money, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. So my mother told me I should apply, and I told her that I didn't want that scholarship. But she was persistent, and I eventually applied, hoping that I wouldn't get it. And so I applied. I remember sitting in our awards assembly at high school at my senior year, and they were going to announce the winner of this scholarship. It was a 5-year scholarship, pretty good one.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't know 100% if I prayed to not get it, but I think I did.
The sentiment was there.
Yeah, the sentiment was there. And they called my name for this really good scholarship.
And you just cursed out
And
loud.
I was devastated. And I couldn't believe I got it because there were more qualified people. I should not have got it. And I remember standing up and walking down to receive it thinking, great, I'm going to be a coach, or I'm going to be a teacher.
Your life had just
yeah, it just
been
ended.
decided.
Right. So, but it's just funny how the Lord works. I ended up finishing a teaching degree that has really been pretty useful. And I had warmed up to the idea of coaching. I really was excited about maybe coaching baseball. And then, of course, I graduate. And it's funny. The whole time I was in college, I was always involved in ministry. I specifically leading worship. I was always leading worship for BCM and youth groups at the same time, multiple times a week. My last year of school, I got to serve part-time leading worship at Platter First Baptist Church.
Oh, okay.
Sarah was a high schooler there at that time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so.
There you go.
You skipped
Yeah.
the part where you met me and I changed your life.
Yeah, I was going to get back to that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll go back to
All
that.
right, I was just glossing over my.
I forgot. Corey, I met
part.
a guy named Cory that changed my life.
It really
Just
is
edit it,
crazy
just
though,
put it in
because
order.
I was like just had gotten saved whenever I met Hannah and Dustin, and they'd only been married for like 6 months, and it's just crazy because, world's
Yeah.
just small. The Lord works in mysterious ways,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, so I got to lead worship there, and I would lead on Sunday morning, Sunday evenings, and help with the youth group. And during that time, I began to have this real strong desire to want to preach, which came out of nowhere. I had a real fear of public speaking, and the Lord just began to reveal to me that He was calling me, to vocational ministry. I didn't know what to do with that. I mean, I was in my last semester of college, and so graduated. I finished student teaching, and I just kind of had in my mind that I wasn't going to look for a ministry job because I wasn't 100%, but I thought that's where He was leading me. I was certainly more interested in teaching the gospel than whatever subject I would have to teach as a coach in school.
History.
History, yeah, that would have been the one. Yeah, so I didn't look for a ministry job. I looked for a teaching job, and I could not get one. Couldn't get hired anywhere, and worked in a factory for a little while. Just tried to share the gospel while I was there with coworkers, and then eventually had the opportunity to go to Tishomingo and do youth ministry, and that's how wound up doing full-time ministry. So it's been cool seeing how the Lord has been in that, has worked in my life and given me opportunities that I wouldn't have expected when I was younger. So, and I forgot Cory. I met a guy named Cory, and this punk rock bass player.
We've been playing music ever since.
Changed the trajectory of my
magical.
life forever.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you were at Tish all that time?
I was in Tishomingo for 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was 23, I think, when I started there. And then that would have been 2012, I think. And then I moved here in 2021.
Okay. So from youth to mobilization and college, what was that transition like?
It's the job that I do now is different for sure, in a lot of ways. I had been involved. I mean, doing youth ministry, I always took our students on some kind of mission trip. We never went overseas, but we did a variety of things. Colorado, went to Arkansas, did a World Changers trip one time. Kind of settled in the last couple of years, going and serving at Mission Arlington. And so, making the switch specifically to missions was a pretty big change for me, but it's been good. It's definitely been something I've just kind of had to trust the Lord in. And college ministry is, for me, it's pretty different than the way we functioned in youth ministry. Of course, college students are different than high schoolers.
Yeah.
It's a different animal in a lot of ways. There's some similarities, but kind of the way we function and things, specifically with us having a really good BCM right here in our community, has kind of made it where the structure of things has to be a little different.
So, I mean, you were obviously not a stranger to mission work, and I'm sure this has kind of broadened your perspective on even the term mobilization. What would you say that means to you now? Probably being a new way of looking at missions, but also what does mobilization look like? Or what does it mean?
Sure.
What does it mean to you?
Sure.
And to our church. I mean, that's,
I think just getting to go on mission trips so much more has showed me how important it is building relationships with the people that we work with, because they're the ones that are really in the trenches in those places. I think making a big difference for the long haul. And so I think when I would take youth groups on a mission trip, I was a little more focused on like the importance of the work that we were doing that week. And I think my mindset has shifted a little bit in the sense of I want our people to get a taste for missions, and I want them to want to go back or to go home praying for the people we work with. And then I say this to our teams all the time. One of our main goals is to really just be a help and an encouragement to the people that we work with so that they'll just keep going.
College ministry. So we're talking about you going from youth ministry to college ministry. What do you think the main difference is? You talked about it being a little bit different. And like, why do you feel like you were called away from youth ministry into like the college ministry, mobilization setting?
Sure.
Or, how did the Lord call you to that?
Okay. So what was the first part of that question?
The main difference between
difference.
youth
Dice
and
of doom.
college. Yep, dice of doom.
Dice of doom is
Exactly.
You don't do that in college ministry.
We don't do the dice of
Imagine
doom
doing
anymore.
that. Imagine doing that at Sunday morning life group.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I would say the one thing that I really enjoy about college ministry is we get to see these students take on making disciples for themselves a little more. And I'm not saying that shouldn't happen in youth ministry, but I mean, when you're 18 to 22 years old or whatever, they're just a little more mature, right? They're growing up a little bit. And I think the hunger that we see in college students for the gospel at that time in their life is pretty exciting. And we get to a big thing that I want to see, and I think it's natural to see in college ministry is you get to give ministry away a little more.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the discipleship that's happening through our college ministry is college students being disciple makers. It's them taking on the ministry for themselves. In our college life group, a lot of we kind of have a rotation of teachers, and a lot of them are college students. Where youth ministry, I was doing the bulk of the teaching, and that's been a big change.
Well, now you're doing both worship and
Right.
life.
That's part of it too.
Life group. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nice that it can function in that way, while also giving college students a chance who want to do missions
Right.
or ministry potentially past this a chance to teach as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's been a pretty big change from youth ministry. And then we're just trying to give them opportunities to serve as well. Like I think one thing that's just logistically different is when you're in youth ministry, Wednesday night's the big thing. You know, we don't even offer Wednesday night college ministry opportunities. And a big reason for that, I think there's two reasons for that. One is there's so much going on between Sundays and then BCM stuff.
Yes.
I haven't felt the need to have another thing on Wednesday night. And then most of our college students are serving in youth ministry and kids ministry and worship. And so Wednesdays, they're working,
Yeah.
And so that's been a big change as well.
They're being mobilized.
Yeah.
There's a common thread here that I see in your life. Dustin is, just like Cory has brought up before, your relationship and how impactful it's been. And that's one thing I appreciate about your approach to mission work and mobilization, because you're such a relational guy. Like, you're so intentional about caring for people, and they know that you care for them. And so even college ministry itself is a branch of mobilization. There's nothing on Wednesday night because we got a bunch of college kids that are being mobilized and working and using, their skills and the things that they've learned. So I think that's important to highlight.
Sure.
I appreciate about what we do.
I think you asked.
And then
there's a
how'd
second
you
part,
come
right?
here, basically?
Yeah.
How'd you feel the Lord call you here,
Sure.
and how'd you end up here? Because we went up to Tish earlier,
Yeah.
and then you just,
Yeah.
I was just
for
kind of wondering
sure.
about the after that
Yeah,
part.
absolutely. I have always, I think, had a heart for college ministry because it was such an impactful time for me. And so, I mean, coming here, that was definitely the opportunity to come work with college students was exciting to me.
Yeah.
So I think it was a combination of that, and then honestly, just part of it was the excitement about getting to work with the staff that's here at FBC. I think I was in a time in my life at the church that I was at, and I loved my time in Tishomingo. I really did. I still love that church. We went and visited them a while back. But I worked by myself a lot, and I was kind of at a point, and I having to work by myself quite a bit. I learned a lot of things. I learned some things the hard way. But I was at a point where I was pretty hungry to work with a staff and to learn from some people who have been doing ministry longer than me, you know? And so I was really excited to get to work with Gary and to be around guys like Jim and Ken, to be a part of a team. And it's really been a blessing to get to be in a really great work environment. And I didn't mention Cole. He's sitting right there. I was most excited to work with Cole.
No, I'm just kidding.
And so that's part of how I think I wound up here. Just slowly began to, I think, to feel the Lord calling us to be here at FBC. And it was a long process for me. Gary first came and talked to me about coming to Durant before there was a position and before they were looking. It was just kind of an idea he had. We had breakfast one day and he told me, hey, in like a year, we might be looking for somebody for a position. But I think that's the time frame that I needed. I really loved where I was at. I wasn't trying to leave. And so having a lot of time to think and to pray and to seek seek the Lord's will in that was really important. I think for me winding up here. So, yeah. But it's been good. And I almost beat Cory here.
I beat you by a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this was brought up too. Yeah.
No.
You got it.
Because I was also in a really lengthy, year-long conversation with Gary about just leaving our church and coming here. And somewhere about halfway, I think Gary said, "So Dustin might be coming here." It was like a, "Come on, Cory." And I was like, "Well, when's he come?" At some point, I was like, "When's he start?" I was like, "All right, I'm going to be there the week before."
The week.
So that's me and my wife came a week before and joined the church the week before Dustin, just so I can have seniority.
Yeah,
He's always got that on you.
Yeah, he's always got it on me. Did that answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I also have a 2-part question.
Okay, I'm ready.
So, all right, because you have technically 3 roles here in the church. I'm part of worship, so I don't have any questions about worship. I know how you do worship. It's annoying.
It's annoying.
And so, but talking about,
I scheduled Trimble this week, Cory.
yeah, you did. I'm pumped.
Okay.
I'm
It's
pumped.
not annoying for the
Not
people
as
who are
annoying.
not in the band,
Yeah.
you know, just the people in the
No, I've just
band.
been doing worship with Dustin for almost 15 years at this point, and so it's fun. Mainly about college and about mobilization, right? So let's start with college. We both were both in the same collegiate ministry around the same time. You had one experience, had a completely different experience. And again, kind of like just speaking to Garrett, I will absolutely compliment you that in a college ministry of 200 people, I hated 195 people there. I was miserable, but you
Tell
were
us how you
one
feel.
of the 5 that I was just Dustin is patient with me. And he's really loving and kind with me.
Yeah.
And so that speaks volumes to you. And I'm going to preface that I was an idiot back then too. I wasn't
all were.
justifiably mad
all
at
might still be.
195 people. I was just young and stupid and trying to navigate things. But people like Dustin were patient with me. So you have your experience in college ministry. And I remember there was a time when I was a youth pastor and I had a guy kind of telling me I was doing Super Summer every year, and every year I was in charge of the college leaders. That was my role in the school every year. And he said, "Hey, I think you're better with college students than you are with youth students." And I said, "Absolutely not." I was just no, because if a middle schooler or high schooler does something dumb, I can say, well, they're middle school and high school. The college kids does something, I'm you're an idiot. I would be a bad college leader because it's you're stupid, right?
You know better.
I'd have no patience at all. So my thing is you being in that kind of that world and dealing with adults, and you are dealing with adults. You're not dealing with children. You're dealing with people that are now stepping forth into starting life. What do you hope they get out of because a youth ministry, it is a revolving door that you've only got them for a short time.
Yeah.
Before you've you hand them off to, you're kind of the last stop until it's all right, now life, go be a functioning Christian in society. So what do you hope they get out of your time in a BCM or in FBC
Sure.
college ministry? What's your goal of just what do you hope they're getting out of it and taking with it?
I hope that they become disciple makers. I think, I mean, we want to see college students we want to see them be discipled. The way we do that at church is we have college J groups that function almost exactly like the regular J groups, except they span from the fall to the spring semester.
10 months, yeah.
It's just not very practical doing them in the summer with most college students.
Yeah, for sure.
But our hope is to see them get plugged into J groups and then to become leaders of J groups. And so that's been a slow process, but each year we've had more college J groups that are led by college students. We've always had some that are led by people like me or other.
Yep, I've done one too.
Yep, Sarah's done one that are led by people out of college. But each year we've had a few more that are college student led. And so we want to see them become disciple makers. We want to, I think, see them grow to the point that we've talked about mobilization, that when they leave college, like, they're mobilizing their lives for the gospel in whatever aspect that is, whether that's becoming career missionaries or whether that's becoming a football coach who knows that his most important job is not football, right? But is making Jesus known. I think that's what we want to see. So, and I think, we have a really cool opportunity to encourage them toward things like BCM that we partner with heavily. And then also seeing them plug into the multi-generational church. I think that's been something that I think we've all seen college students who are involved in a campus ministry that didn't get plugged into church and didn't know what to do when they graduated. And so a big thing that we want to do here at the church is support BCM fully. Like we don't plan anything that conflicts with BCM on purpose. It's too great of a ministry, but we want to help them to plug into the church that's full of people who are totally different than them, so that whenever they graduate and it's time to leave BCM, it's time to leave college ministry, they're mobilized adults.
Which I mean,
that's big.
I think that's something I've seen in the last 10 years, or maybe even shorter time, where it does seem like maybe back when we were in college ministry, it didn't seem like churches had much of a college ministries internally. It's almost like they were all just saying, the BCM does it. And then it seems like churches have more or less said, like, no, let's take up some of the slack, some of the weight. Let's like actually plug them into our churches. Because you look around here and they're in youth teaching, they're teaching the college groups, they're leading J groups, they're in the worship teams, they're like all over the place, they're in the nursery, they're serving all over this church. So I think that's like an encouraging thing to have seen happen in this community in terms of like the BCM collaborating with multiple churches, because Western Meadows has college ministry now. I mean, not a big one, but like Fusion has them, like almost every church now kind of has a thing, like, their own college ministry that just kind of supports the BCM, but also brings them into a local church. And I think that's cool to have seen in the last like few years.
Even like I'm sitting here thinking about seeing them at church business meetings, and being a part of committees.
They like 3 tables worth of college students that are like,
these are the adults that will be serving and helping guide the church and make the right moves and decisions. And so to see them at that young age, like learning how to be a part of that, what it looks like biblically to be a part of the church is
it makes
really
that transition so much easier. I feel like because if not, you graduate and you just feel like you're like, well, my community's gone. But if you're already plugged into the local church and obviously like coming to business meetings and being part of committees and serving, like you already,
that's really cool.
You don't feel like an absence of community when you graduate.
And I think like I'm encouraged by seeing, I think like I came from also an era of like, you saw a lot of stagnation, like a lot of like, they get to the end of college and they're freaking out. They're like, I need youth group or BCM something. I need something. Like it's a scary step. And now, like I see, like we have a guy in the band, Travis. Travis is about to go start life, and he's not going to be here.
About that,
but it's encouraged to see like he's not freaked out.
Sure,
he's like been prepped by the BCM to be like, go off and start life at a new church and know that he can plug into that church and like serve there. And I feel like I didn't see that a lot, but it's like now I see like that. I see like that's more of a thing. It's like where you're really prepping college students to just now, okay, cool. You've made it to the end of the line. Now, like, you're a disciple maker. You've done this. You've led J groups. You've served here. You served with this. You can go do that in any church.
Sure.
And it just kind of ripples out. And I think that's cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to see them, to let them go.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it is. But I think it's
the
important we have
hardest
that mindset, you know, that, gosh, they're eventually
No,
gonna
that's
leave
the hardest
us.
thing about like you said, the revolving door. I feel like, I mean, I've helped with college ministry some like over the years, and that's like one of those things, like, you know, it's almost like whenever you go to college and you have a tight group of friends, then everyone does go off and do life. And so now my best friend on this whole earth lives 4 hours away from me. And we were just, we talk every day, but we were like, we haven't even seen each other since June. And we're like, what is going on? Because we both just had babies, and that's just the way life is. But, like, it's beautiful and it's encouraging, like Cory said, but it's also, like, I think the hardest part of the gig. You're like, it's like that, but like if you're involved in college ministry, which I have been for several years past being in college, it's like I'm just going through that again and again. Because like I make like these close relationships with girls, and then off they go because they're graduating college and they're moving to, you know, get a new job or whatever.
The
So
I'm
sure you feel that on a whole different level than me. But.
Yeah, that's one thing that I didn't really even think about, but it's very different than youth ministry. You just don't have a lot of time with them, you know. A couple of years and it's a totally different group.
And things can change so fast as they're figuring out life.
But I was hoping you could also just speak on almost the exact same question, but for missions. Like when you're getting a team ready to go to New York or Columbia or wherever, what do you hope they take out of it? Because it's a hard thing. It's not a career missionary thing.
Yeah.
It's hey, we're going to go somewhere. We're actually just going to plug in for a very microcosmic second of this on-ground missionary's like life.
Yeah.
You know, like what do you hope that they take out of that?
As far as our people, what they take out of it, I mean, I want them to grow more hungry for missions, and who knows what the Lord can do with that, right? I mean, maybe eventually they're career missionaries.
Yeah, I mean, we have our on-ground Brian McMillan and Bree, and they're from here, and they're from the BCM, and that's they got their foot in the door doing missions there, and now they're living somewhere. So
maybe it's the first step towards something like that, and maybe it's just them, you know, growing in love. Growing in love, that seems like a weird way to say that. Their desire for missions, right? Their love for missions growing, and them being a part of these teams every year. I think that, I mean, I want to see people hungry to make Jesus known, right? And so, like I said, it could be them becoming a career missionary, and if it's just them coming back and caring about a missionary or church planter and praying for them every day. Yeah. That's powerful. Yeah. You know? So we want to see people's lives changed to a degree that go on mission. Yeah. We want to be helpful to the people that we're serving with. Yeah. We've already mentioned encouraging them. I think one of the cool opportunities we have when we go on these trips, even though they're short trips, and I mean it can just feel like it flies by, right? It feels like you're not there hardly any time at all. But like when we go somewhere like New York City, and we get to work with Danny, you know, Danny's a small church plant, you know, or Swarp Church is. So, you know, when they're in worship, depending on their, I was about to say depending on the location. Both locations are small. If there's 30 people in the room, it's packed, right? And so the service opportunities that he has, a lot of times he does them, him and Melissa are doing them on their own. Yeah. You know, like day to day, if they don't have a team, you know, they're running this food bank by themselves. And then all of a sudden getting to give him 10 people to help with those things, it really is helpful. It enables them to be able to do some things that they can't do otherwise. You know, like go to a local elementary school and put on a field day, you know, with the PE teacher, things like that. And so we want to be helpful to people we're serving with. And also, we want to see our people come back different.
The relational emphasis we put on mission work is huge. I think it brings to life some of the things we see in the Bible of like my J groups in 1st, 2nd Corinthians right now, and it's talking about Paul, and Paul's like, I'm going to send you Titus. He's a stud, and he's going to come here and he's going to encourage you. But I think of my time of getting to go help whoever, they become kind of like the heroes of my faith. And I think that changes your perspective on life when you go meet these people like
For sure.
Pastor Eleazar in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Honestly, Guillermo. Like,
Oh, for sure.
First time I met Guillermo, I was like, this dude is running and gunning, and he's sharing the gospel everywhere. And like, we're blessed to have him here now, which is blows my mind considering where I first met him. But it just, you see the work that they're doing, and it's just such a testimony and encouragement. It changes your perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's actually well said, because I'm like trying to think like, and Dustin knows the worst parts of me. Like, he's known me for a long time. He's known me through just some of my worst ministry experiences. And like, there's a time where I was really like kind of like I just came out of ministries and churches that were very guilt driven about missions. Like, you need to go or you're bad at being a Christian. And I was just like, well, that's dumb. And so I would rebel and be like, well, that's, you're dumb, and stuff like that. But like, I went on some. And I can honestly like speak to what you're saying, that like, if nothing else going on those, like, I don't really ever go a week where I don't think about these people in Turkey. Like, I think about Mateen every day, almost every day. This dude in Turkey, he just crosses my mind. Michael and Seth, the guys I live with in Turkey, and like, even in Puerto Rico, the street that we worked on, I think about like this dude that like, we bonded over cockfighting because he was a cockfighter and my grandparents were. And like, I sort of knew all this weird stuff. And so like, and it's just like, it at least just expands your mind to be like thinking about like, there's people out there and they're going through it, and I like knowing that there's people there still loving on those people and still kind of pouring into those people, even though like I'm not in that capacity, but like you're reminded to pray often about these people and pray people you don't know. I mean, it just kind of like burst your bubble like wider to think, and I think that like maybe that's like just kind of what I get on what you were saying, that I think like if nothing else, that's what you're gonna bring back. Is like, you're going to think just more globally about like just the gospel and people and have met, even though they were just little small moments and stuff. Because I think about these people I haven't seen in like 15 years.
It's just kind of like last week we were talking about discipleship and how it's like, oh, this is the Bible. This is what we're supposed to be doing. It's like mobilization and learning about those people.
Guillermo's first 2 weeks here, you just had all these people showing up randomly. Like, they don't go to church here. They're just like, hey, we heard Guillermo's here, and I went on a mission trip with the youth group here like 15 years ago, and I want to just come see him. And I was like, that's it, man. That's cool.
His impact and the influence he had on them.
So.
Yeah. Very cool.
So, if someone is listening and they want to either be involved in missions or the college ministry, what are some ways that they can support those things or plug into those things?
So for missions, I think a couple ways. Obviously, you can go, you can give, you can pray. If you want to go on missions, we'll have an application period next year. Not next year. I guess it's this year. But so our trips right now are locked in. But next fall we'll be taking applications again for the next round. And so you can begin to pray about if you're not going on a trip this year, you can begin to pray about if the Lord would want you to go next year. And I would just say sometimes we can overcomplicate whether or not God is calling us to go on a mission trip. For sure. Like, are you a Christian? Yes. Are you called to share the gospel? Yes. Would the Lord probably want you to go on a mission trip? I think so. So don't overcomplicate it, right? You don't have to be an expert. And I would say this too, like, I'm not a missions expert. But I know we're called to go, and we're called to make him known. Like, that's why, I mean, our mission strategy is based off of the Great Commission. Which is pretty simple. So we'd love it if you would go on a trip. Other ways, praying is so vital. That's something we get reminded about by Ryan McMillan in Berlin when we're there. He really talks about the importance of prayer, and he just constantly says that prayer is the work. And so if you're not going, please pray for us. We've got teams going to Cucuta this summer, to Berlin in spring break, coming up really quick next month. Good grief! So anyway, going to Berlin next month.
Just start sweating.
yeah, and then New York City this summer as well. Please pray for those teams. Pray that God would give us opportunities to share the gospel. It is not hard to go on a mission trip and not share the gospel. Just like we've got to be intentional here to share the gospel when we're on location somewhere, we've got to be intentional there too. You can get wrapped up in just the work and miss the opportunities. So pray that we would be bold, pray that we would be intentional, that God would be glorified on those trips. And then you can give. Going on mission is expensive. You know, we have some people on our teams that can afford it, and you know, they can pay for their trips. We also have a lot of young people who cannot afford it, and they've signed up knowing they can't afford it, and we tell them to do that. So for a lot of people signing up to go on a mission trip, the financial side of things is just trusting that God will provide.
Yeah.
We believe that He will, you know, generosity of our people in our churches was what makes it possible. So if you want to give, you can certainly give toward missions at the church. At the end of April, we're doing a golf tournament fundraiser. It'll be our first try at this. Yeah. And so we're going to give it a shot. So we'll be putting out information about that soon. So those are some ways that people can give to be involved as well.
And then college ministry.
Yeah, so college is a little different. We don't have, you know, if you're doing youth ministry, you have youth sponsors. We don't have college ministry sponsors because they're grown-ups. If somebody's interested in being involved in college ministry, please reach out to me. One really simple way that you can be involved, about twice a month, we do something that we just call College Hangout. Sunday evenings, we would love to bring the college students to your house. And they would love to eat your food and play basketball in your driveway and things like that. And so we go to somebody's house about twice a month, and it's just a time of fellowship. We're not doing Bible study or anything like that. We don't have a schedule, but we provide food. And sometimes there's an activity, like if somebody's got a huge yard, we go to Tim White's house, we always play flag football.
That's what it is.
Sometimes soccer happens. We try to make sure it's football, but sometimes soccer breaks out.
Frisbee, something.
Right. So, but that fellowship event has been really cool, I think, for our college ministry. It just provides them a good, easy opportunity to invite new people that we can meet and plug in, or try to help them plug in with the college ministry. And then one of the things I love about it is they get to be around just some people from our church, right? So the people that host it get to meet a lot of college students and practice the ministry of hospitality. So reach out to me if you're interested in doing that as well.
And then if you are a college student and you want to come to Life Group, it's another way you can plug in. But when and where does that occur?
Life Group is at 10:50. We start the Life Group Bible study at 10:15. We always have breakfast for college students at 10 o'clock. So
food is a common theme. I like that.
Food is a common thing, it's important. When you're in college, you know where all the free meals are.
You know that.
So we start eating at 10 o'clock. It's in the Student Worship Center. Every Sunday.
Perfect.
One thing I want to consider, college students are very moldable, very flexible. So as far as mobilization goes, it makes a whole lot of sense to say we're going to disciple you and prepare you for the world, and you've kind of got the option to do all kinds of things in leveraging your life. But for the more seasoned saints, which I'm closer to or getting closer to than college kids, how would you encourage everyone in the church to make sure you are leveraging your life and even challenging yourself to maybe join in on mission?
I would say, I mentioned being intentional earlier. I mentioned the wanting, the college student that becomes a coach, realizing that coaching is not his first and foremost priority. I think it's seeing our daily lives
Yeah.
as opportunities to make Jesus known in the workplace and in our relationships. My favorite verse about worship, I think Ken might have used the same one, but Romans 12:1, which teaches us that really our spiritual worship is laying our lives down as a living sacrifice. I think that's every day, seeing everything we do, every opportunity as an opportunity to make Jesus known, to make much of the Lord. And so I would encourage, right, you mentioned the more seasoned saints, like how are you leveraging your job and your family,
Right.
everything that you do for the gospel. And those more seasoned saints can go on mission trips. They're not just college student trips.
Yeah.
One thing we're really excited about, our Kukata team this year has some more seasoned saints on it, and we're really excited about that.
That's awesome.
No, I would encourage, because I did this a lot of Western Matters when they were starting missions, and my wife, it's weird. Again, I can say that I come from like this past where I was really like kind of aggressive towards these short-term missions and stuff. And then I married a woman who was a full-time missionary. And I only know her because people from this town went to Venezuela and met her. And she came and visited and then met this. And and then never went back. And so, God bless her. And
She knew if somebody wasn't making Cory eat healthy, he was
right.
gonna
She's like
over.
this American needs help. And so, but like, I've been on mission trips where it's been a collection of both, like young and older. And like, honestly, I think I've always been really blown away by the impact it has on people who really, like, because again, college students, they're not sacrificing maybe nearly as much at that age. They're not tied down. They're not married. You know, there are no kids. It's a little less responsibility. They just kind of got to rate the finances. But then when they're gone, it's just like, this is kind of an adventure. You're at that age. Whereas like, I've been with people who are like, I had to leave my kids with my husband. I don't know if he's ever been alone with them. You know, I mean, like, it's just like all this sacrifice, all this craziness. When they get there, man, I think I've seen them just more blown away by the experience of it. And kind of like the return on investment of that sacrifice is huge, you know, for them. I think like they're really kind of in it more, you know, and it is harder. And they're like, and like, I've just seen that like really come to fruition. So I just know anyone that's like, in the church thinking like they can't do this because it's like, oh, I have my kids or my family and they rely on me. It's like, no, you're in a church that's a support system. If we have to, we'll get your kids fed while, you know, you're gone, you know.
Your husband will figure it out.
Yeah, like, we'll get a food train going, you know, for a week. We can handle it, you know. And
or just take the kids.
Yeah, just take the kids, you know. I mean, like,
it will be difficult, but you'll make it through.
That's right. We carry Heath all over New York City.
And so, so I mean, like, I really do think sometimes you have to like go a little bit further with like just saying like it's not off the table. This is not just for college students, and the trips aren't made just for college students. You're not going to be just going around in like college. You're going to be doing stuff that's cool, and it's just helping push the gospel. And again, even if you just come home and you just feel like, wow, it's neat to see another part of the world and how the gospel's either not that present there, being rejected there, but you just now you're going to pray for that place forever because you just kind of have, you know, it's put its thumbprint on you. And so
if you've been around a while, you have a lot to give. In the Berlin trip I was able to go on, we had a good mix of different ages, and the wisdom, experience, even just the knowledge, practical knowledge about history in Germany.
That's a good point. These mission trips need older people too. You know, if you just have younger people, then it's just like you're missing out on some worldly wisdom there. You know,
because it's you know, it's the end of the week, and some of our college students are exhausted, and it was cool to see some of those that were a little older encourage them, help nurture them, honestly, and kind of get through the week and provide them perspective and wisdom. And it's just a blessing to have a good mix.
Absolutely.
for sure.
So as we always say every week, and especially today as we talk about mobilization, make sure that you are leveraging your life for the gospel and go and make disciples of all nations.